Welcome to D&D Builds, where we have an outlet to make all sorts of ridiculous Dungeons & Dragons characters and stop driving the people in our lives insane with them. I had a vote over on my Patreon for pretty much a month's worth of builds, but I needed a tiebreaker, so I threw it over to the YouTube community and you all voted, and between the Titans from Attack on Titan and a Teen Titan named Starfire, you all chose Starfire, so that's what we're building now. If you want more input on what I build like these incredible people here, check out my Patreon linked in the description down below, or the especially awesome player character level patron, Theo Pollard, and going above and beyond that, my Dungeon Master level patrons, Devin Happy, Benjamin, Tristan Bennett, and GameStake. They get additional perks, including having D&D sessions hosted by me, which I stream right here on YouTube as well as over on Twitch. And then finally, the ultimate god tier level patron, Kilo, who goes above and beyond, and I cannot thank him enough. Now let's figure out how to build this alien Teen Titan, Starfire. First things first, we gotta pick a race, and there's actually a new race in Spelljammer that is perfect for her. It's called the Astral Elf. They have a few usual elf features like Fey ancestry, giving them advantage on saving throws against being charmed, dark vision up to 60 feet, and they can go into a trance for 4 hours instead of getting a full night's rest. But what makes them especially perfect for Starfire is they have two particular features. The first is called Starlight Step, mostly just for the naming convention because it's got star in the name, but this makes it so as a bonus action you can magically teleport up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space that you can see. You can only use this as many times as your proficiency bonus, but it's still a pretty nice perk. And then the other one that's directly tied to Starfire's name is Astral Fire, giving you a cantrip that can be either Dancing Lights, Light, or Sacred Flame, and you get to choose the non-physical ability modifier that's going to be used for the spellcasting. We're going to use Sacred Flame, which is radiant damage, and we'll keep that in mind for a little later in the build. Then when it comes to a background, we're going to be leaning into Spelljammer again, grabbing the Wild Spacer background because you're from the wilds of outer space, which gives you proficiency in the athletics and survival skills, which actually adds to your skill list because you also get proficiency in the perception skill as being an astral elf. Additionally, this gives you tool proficiencies in navigator's tools and space vehicles, and most importantly, it gives you the feat Tough, allowing you to add 2 hit points per level to your overall health pool. When it comes to Starfire's stats, starting with strength, we're actually going to make it a 10. I know she actually does have some super strength, but that's not usually what we focus on as far as our abilities, so we're going to keep it at a baseline of 10, and then we're going to take her dexterity, bump it up to 15, and then get another +1 from our racial selection. Then we're going to take our constitution, bump it to 14 because she can take a fair amount of hits, and that's only going to be amplified by our tough feat. Then we're going to take our intelligence, keep it at a baseline of 10. She's definitely not dumb, but it's not her forte either. And then we're going to take her wisdom and completely dump it because she's on a completely new world and she doesn't really understand a lot of Earth customs most of the time. Not to mention she does have some difficulty understanding certain points of human expression, so she wouldn't be great at insight either. Lastly, we have charisma, and Starfire is a super charismatic character, so we're going to bump that up to 14 and then get another +2 from our racial choice. I mean, Starfire's general abilities are based on her emotions, and that's definitely going to rely on the charisma based ability score. And since we have such a high charisma, when we use our Astral Fire ability to cast Sacred Flame, we'll be using charisma for that one. When it comes to choosing a class, we do have very high charisma, and Starfire is known as a very blasty kind of character. So we're going to be jumping into Sorcerer. At first level of Sorcerer, you get saving throws in Constitution and Charisma, and Constitution's especially helpful because that's what you need to make concentration checks on your spells, and then you get to choose 2 skills. So we're going to take Arcana because you know how the magic works within you, and Persuasion because you are particularly charming. Also at first level of Sorcerer, you get some spell casting and a sorceress origin. So when deciding on a sorceress origin, I put a lot of thought into this. She's really about that specific type of power that's inside of her, and I think that power comes out in 2 particular ways. Leaning into what we got from Astral Fire and connecting that to her name, radiant damage is definitely going to be part of that power. But the other thing is that she has these green energy blasts, and the only thing green in most of D&D is poison, so that doesn't quite work. But then there's that cantrip, Green Flame Blade. And if flames can be green, then we're going with a fire-based type of caster. And we're gonna say that absolutely all of the fire coming out of her is just green. I know her abilities are technically ultraviolet energy, but there's only so many radiant spells we can use, which is probably what that would be. And this is kind of a creative way to get around it. And if we're focusing so heavily on fire types of attacks, mixed with Starfire's overall look, I think the absolute perfect sorceress origin is gonna be Draconic Bloodline. Right from the start, you get to choose a dragon ancestor, and that dragon ancestor actually influences your overall appearance. Considering the orangish reddish tone of most of Starfire, not to mention we're leaning into fire-based abilities, it's going to be all about choosing either a brass or red dragon ancestor. But Starfire is a Tamaranian, and that particular type of alien species happens to be allergic to metallic chromium. So we're going to steer away from the chromatic dragons and go with a straightforward red dragon ancestor. When you choose this subclass, you get draconic resilience. Starfire was already able to take a handful of hits, but this makes it even better, because this specifically states that magic flows through your body and it causes physical traits of your dragon ancestors to emerge. So that overall color and tone that comes through only makes more sense now. And the fact that you have such a strong tie to that actual firepower inside of you, to the point that that fire is turning green, it makes more sense why your eyes have that green glow to them. But this draconic resilience isn't just for looks, it also increases your hit point maximum by 1 for every level that you take in this class, and your skin is actually tougher, so while you aren't wearing any armor, your armor class equals 13 plus your dexterity modifier, bringing it to 16 for right now. And now that we've sorted that out, it's time to jump into some spells. At first level, you learn 4 cantrips and 2 spells. As far as our cantrips, we already have Sacred Flame, but let's add some more actual fire-based spells to it, grabbing Firebolt, obviously, Light, and Dancing Lights, so that way you can just create some green lights to float around, and then we'll just top it off with Create Bonfire. As far as the 2 spells of first level that we're going to grab, we'll go with Burning Hands because it's an obvious fire-based spell, which is super blasty, and then we'll grab Chromatic Orb because that seems to fit super well, and you get to choose what type of damage it is, so we can always choose fire if we want to. Then at second level of Sorcerer, we get 2 sorcery points, which we can use towards Font of Magic, which we also get at this level, allowing us to convert sorcery points into additional spell slots in case we ever run out. But there are other uses for sorcery points, so you can also convert spell slots into sorcery points, which is great for those players that really want to get the most amount of spell casting they can before having to take any sort of rest to refuel. You also get 1 more spell at this level, so I'm going to go ahead and grab Comprehend Languages, because Starfire has the ability to understand an entire species' language just by kissing somebody. Then at third level of Sorcerer, you get 1 more sorcery point and you get Meta Magic, allowing you to alter spells however you really want to. You can do things like transmuting a spell, turning it from one damage type to another, but frankly there's enough fire-based spells on the Sorcerer spell list that I don't really feel the need to do this yet, so I would grab Twinned Spell, allowing you to make a spell that only targets 1 creature actually target 2. Then on top of that, I would grab Quickened Spell, which allows you to take any spell that would have cost you 1 action to cast and now make it so you can cast it as a bonus action. You can learn additional meta magic later on in the build, but for now you only get 2. Lastly, at this level you get to learn 1 more spell, and you can now cast up to 2nd level spell slots. So we're gonna grab Agonizer's Scorcher because it's a pretty solid blasty fire-based spell. Then at 4th level of Sorcerer, you get another sorcery point. You get to learn 1 more cantrip, so I would grab Friends because you are very friendly, and although this does magically alter them, Starfire does have some intense charismatic ability. Then you also get 1 more spell, so I would go ahead and grab Scorching Ray, so you can blast in multiple directions simultaneously. Lastly, at 4th level, we get an ability score improvement, and we're actually not going to take that ability score improvement, but instead we're going to grab a feat. We obviously have a ton of fire-based spells, and it really would suck if you came up against an enemy that was resistant to fire damage. So to help mitigate that, we're going to grab the feat Elemental Adept. You can choose 1 type of damage, and here we're going to choose fire, and now any spell you cast ignores resistance to fire damage. And on top of that, when you are dealing fire damage, anytime you roll dice for that damage, you can treat any 1 on the damage die as a 2. Then at 5th level of Sorcerer, you get 1 more sorcery point, and you get 1 more spell that can be all the way up to 3rd level. So of course, we're going to grab the infamous Fireball. Then at 6th level of Sorcerer, you get 1 more sorcery point and 1 more spell, and we're going to grab Fly for now, but we will have a way to achieve that without a spell a bit later, because that is one of the core abilities of Starfire. Lastly, at 6th level, you get another feature from your Draconic Bloodline, Elemental Affinity. So now whenever you deal fire damage, you can add your Charisma modifier to that damage. Additionally, this feature also gives you the ability to spend 1 sorcery point and gain resistance to fire damage for 1 hour. Then at 7th level of Sorcerer, you get 1 more sorcery point, and you get 1 more spell that can be all the way up to 4th level now. There's not a ton of great spells that stick with the theme here, but we can pretend that you're blasting in a line along the ground and cast Wall of Fire. Then at 8th level of Sorcerer, you get one more sorcery point and you get another spell. So since we still really don't have a lot to choose from, we'll just grab Fire Shield and pretend that you're using your magic glowing hands to block some of that damage. This spell gives you resistance to fire damage if you didn't already take it by spending one sorcery point for that 1 hour, and it also makes you resistant to cold damage, which does actually fit with the theme of Starfire since she doesn't really feel cold very much. And finally, this is a very defensive spell because it allows you to hit somebody with some fire damage if anybody tries to hit you with a melee attack. Lastly, at 8th level, you get an ability score improvement, so we're finally going to boost up our charisma by 2 more points. And then at 9th level of Sorcerer, you get 1 more sorcery point and you learn 1 more spell that can be all the way up to 5th level. And it's finally time to get another spell that has the other damage type that we said would apply to Starfire, radiant damage. Similar to how blasting the ground in a big line would create a wall of fire, same thing for this with Wall of Light. I'm just happy we can finally start using that other damage type. Then at 10th level you get another sorcery point and we get a new cantrip, but since there's not really anything else that fits with our theme, I do know that Starfire can take a fair amount of hits and she's pretty resilient, so we're going to grab Blade Ward, making you resistant to a handful of types of damage. Additionally, you get 1 more spell, so we're going to go ahead and grab Immolation. Think of this as continuously blasting just one enemy and just obliterating them with green flames. And lastly, at this level you get to choose 1 more meta magic, so we're just going to grab Subtle Spell, making it so you don't have to use any verbal or somatic components when casting a spell. And this applies pretty well since it's pretty much second nature for you to do all this blasting. Then at 11th level of Sorcerer you get 1 more sorcery point and 1 more spell, which can now be up to a 6th level. So we're going to grab another spell that does radiant damage, which is the other thing we really wanted to focus on, and grab Sunbeam. This is just a continuous beam of radiant energy just shooting straight out of you. Then at 12th level of Sorcerer you get 1 more sorcery point and you get an ability score improvement, so we're finally going to max out our charisma. And then at 13th level of Sorcerer you get yet again 1 more sorcery point and you can learn 1 more spell that is all the way up to 7th level. So we're going to grab the oh so powerful Delayed Blast Fireball. Then at 14th level of Sorcerer you get another sorcery point, of course, and you get another feature from your Draconic bloodline. You get Dragon Wings. Granted, Starfire doesn't actually have wings, but she can fly around pretty easily. So now you can pretty much fly at will just by using a bonus action to start having the ability to fly. But this also means that the spell Fly is pretty much useless to us. So we're going to trade in that spell for a 2nd level spell, Flaming Sphere. We definitely had some other fire-based spells that could apply, but Flaming Sphere seems to fit a little better for Starfire, even if it's not quite as powerful as something like Investiture into Flame or Firestorm, or we could have even tried to play off Disintegrate to completely blast somebody into oblivion. But considering we really just see her using these balls of energy, I like Flaming Sphere as a spell. Then at 15th level of Sorcerer, of course, we get another sorcery point and we can learn 1 more spell that's all the way up to 8th level. So just like we have before, we're leaning even more into that radiant damage and grabbing Sunburst. It does a hell of a lot of damage. It's almost like as you've gotten more powerful, you've leaned more into these radiant powers because you're getting better control of the source of the energy within you, even if we are still playing up the whole fire thing as much as possible. Then at 16th level we get, yep, you guessed it, another sorcery point, and we get another ability score improvement. We're already flying around trying not to get hit as much as possible, but we just want to make sure you are a bit more hardy if you do get hit, so we're going to bump up our Constitution by 2 points. Then at 17th level of Sorcerer, you get 1 more sorcery point, and you can learn 1 more spell that is all the way up to 9th level. And since you're from outer space, you can do plenty of blasting and just rain it down on everybody around you by grabbing the spell Meteor Swarm, which is practically 1 step away from blowing up Krypton and raining down on Smallville yourself. Even though it wasn't Starfire that did anything like that, I just wanted to reference Smallville again since I just did a Superman video. Also at this level you get another meta magic option, so we'll go ahead and grab Heighten Spell, forcing an enemy to have disadvantage on any saving throw that they would have against one of your spells. Then at 18th level of Sorcerer you get 1 more sorcery point and you get a feature from your Draconic bloodline, Draconic presence. You can think of this more as Tamaranian presence, but this allows you to exude an aura of fear. You can think of this as flaring the lights in your eyes or the energy around your hands to really just scare the crap out of your enemies, forcing any enemy within 60 feet of you to make a wisdom saving throw or be frightened of you. Or you can do the complete opposite and turn on the charm and force the same saving throw but make them charmed by you instead. Then at 19th level of Sorcerer, you get another sorcery point and an ability score improvement. So we want to make you a bit harder to hit because you are pretty nimble, so we're going to put 2 points into dexterity. Then finally at 20th level of Sorcery, you get your 20th sorcery point and you get Sorceress Restoration, which just allows you to regain 4 sorcery points if you finish a short rest. I know this build was super straightforward, especially for my channel, but I really just wanted to make a very blasty, charismatic space alien. Let me know what you think of this build, or if there's any other builds you want in the future, let me know in the comments down below. I had a vote over on my Patreon for pretty much a month's worth of builds, but I needed a tiebreaker, so I threw it over to the YouTube community and you all voted, and between the Titans from Attack on Titan and a Teen Titan named Starfire, you all chose Starfire. If you want more input on what I build like these incredible people here, check out my Patreon linked in the description down below, or the especially awesome player character level patron Theo Pollard, and going above and beyond that, my Dungeon Master level patrons Devin Happy, Benjamin, Tristan Bennett, and GameStake. They get additional perks including having D&D sessions hosted by me, which I stream right here on YouTube as well as over on Twitch. And then finally, the ultimate god tier level patron, Kilo, who goes above and beyond, and I cannot thank him enough. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you plan on using this build to play as an overly charismatic Tamaranian known as Starfire.